Hey, what's good, everyone? Um, Before we get into Dears Blue, there may be a question like in the back of your head, and that would be like, why is my series named after music genres? Because we had Dear Hip Hop, now we have Dear Blues. Okay, so let me just explain that real quick. One of the core elements of my comic is music. I don't need the script for this. I should have just made my script in the bullet points or something. But yeah. My music is legit just based off my comic is based off music. Or it will have a lot of musical influences. It will have a lot of musical influences in the story. Which is why they're called Dear Hip Hop, Dear Blues. Let me just show you the video like once again. To my side over here. You can go and you can like scan the QR codes and listen to the music which I made. I personally made for the comic. This will include character themes, world music, when you enter new zones, and like a lot more. You know, like in like Legend of Zelda, when you enter like a dungeon and music plays. Yeah, there's gonna be like a lot of music, and it's gonna be heavily inspired by MF Doom. I don't even know how to pronounce his name. Nunjumbers. R.I.P. to the GOAT. He's the one who made like Brown Lady, Love, Part 1, 2. I think there's like 8 maybe. And he also worked on Samurai Champloo. Shamlu. So yeah, it's gonna be inspired by those creators. Maybe even some smaller creators like Daddy Fat Snaps and Russ Age. Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of videos like that, but I'm probably gonna keep it to instrumentals because I did make a song before. You can check it out. It is on YouTube. You can check it out, the video of the music. But this is not a music explanation video. This is about my comic. I just wanted to let you guys know why, and maybe you can check out the music if you're interested. But anyway, we're getting into Dear Blues. This comic features a surprise, a big surprise. Guess who the main character is? Surprise, surprise, it's Topman, coming for the third time. Anyway, Topman this time is a big burly, like broly man, burly type build type of man. While other Topmans were more weaker looking, weaker looking does not equal to strength, by the way. We know this from anime. But in this story, Topman is a big broly type of guy. However, in this story, this Topman was originally homeless, with the best bro by his side, and they were miners. Not that type of miners, bro. You can get out of here. I'm talking about actual miners who mine in a mine. Shaft. Actual miners in the miner community. And in that community, parents don't typically stay for longer than they're supposed to, as it's expected that the child will be able to look after themselves in that type of community. It's kind of like animals. I don't know what animal. I'm not an animal expert. But you know how some animal parents will just like leave their children and then expect them to just grow up on their own, to be strong? That's basically how this community functions. And to be strong on your own, you would have to get like a job in one of the mining shafts, and that's basically where you are expected to work for the rest of your life. So concepts like parental bonds, marriages, they don't matter. But Topman did make a friend. He did make a bond with another homeless kid. His name is Pending. Like, his name isn't Pending, but name Pending. I haven't thought of it yet. But they travel together, and then one day they actually do find work, surprisingly. In one of the weaker mines, they do find some work in which, they goof off and they have fun, and, they have fun and they work at the same time. You live at your job as well. Like, one scene that I have in mind is that the two bros get into mine shafts or mine carts, and they just race each other like they're jousting. Overall, they're just having fun with fireworks, annoying their boss. And yeah, that's going to be like chapter 1, getting into the job. I say chapter 1, but that's chapter 1, part 1. Yeah, these chapters come in parts like an essay. Or like an exam. Okay, so Topman is recruited upwards to the higher ranks due to his inventions, which have made mining easier. He wasn't the strongest at the time. He was, feeble. Our Topman was feeble before he became Broly. But yeah, he made a lot of inventions which made a lot of things really good. He's very resourceful. He creates beautiful machinery. However, in any case, Topman is passed out after partying with his bro, and with his bro being one of the only people awake, the current boss at the time asked him to give his certificate to Topman so he can also move upwards in the company. However, to get the certificate, the best bro needs to go to upper management to get it. When asked why he doesn't do it himself, the boss says something cryptic. Something fishy is clearly going on in this company. But in any case, I won't waste your time, dear viewer. The best friend overhears upper management. He overhears a conversation in upper management that basically says that Topman is going up in the company while the best friend will be fired because of his lack of contribution, which will put him back on the streets, only this time alone. And due to some hijinks, and basically I can't tell you yet, but he ends up in the main boss's office and lies about his name, and the two end up being swapped in the company files. After weeks of planning, one day the best friend ends up going upwards because they think he's Topman, and Topman is on the verge of being fired. Obviously, you have the emotional, "Why are you doing this?" type scene. And now Topman is getting the boot out of the company after the best friend goes. But quickly gets back on his feet due to a new part of the mine where he stays. And now the two best friends are separated. You know how it goes. And they stay separated for a couple of years. But wait, I haven't talked about one main character yet. I haven't talked about the grandfather. Now everyone thinks there's only the mines. And yes, I see you in the back. No, this is not like Gurren Lagann. but I will admit there are a lot of similarities, and I will be comparing them in this part. So most people think there's only the mines. However, Topman keeps having dreams of an old man walking above where a sky is, where water is, where air is. He tells him to come up. Now that he has nothing left, in the mines, revealing himself as the grandfather, a man who actually got out and is surviving on the surface. So after a couple of years, Topman works out an escape plan, which is where the story begins in the present time of Topman being a Broly type figure. Speak, learn to speak, learn to speak. So now he's like 20 years old. Okay guys, so that is a bit of the story, but now I have to explain why it's kind of like Gurren Lagann. I realize that it is, and one of the biggest parts of that is there are aliens on the surface with domes around their heads floating in the ocean. So let me explain. So years ago, aliens dropped onto the Earth with remarkable power of thought. With the remarkable power of thought. So basically, anything they think becomes reality. They could turn you into a hot dog with 8 legs, just depending on what they're thinking. And the world is now like 97% water, and these aliens just swim on the Earth. They are massive, like wow, Pao Gazal, like they're massive. But yeah, they just, swim across the Earth from time to time. But some humans did survive, and they actually went inside of the aliens like brain pieces. So humans have decided to live like inside of the aliens' brains, basically. And that's why the cave system's there. There's like rocks and stuff in like the brains of the aliens. However, they have to be very discreet, because a thought from an alien basically saying, "Stop the pain in my head," could destroy the whole of humanity at this point. So humans are secretly there, and they need caves to keep people inside and not cause mass hysteria. They also need to keep the people working, which is why you don't have marriages, close bonds or friendships or anything. Just to keep, the overall masses in line. And one big theme about this story is basically capitalism, or like how the rich in general like operates, and how the working class operates in a very exaggerated form. For example, there's a storyline about swapping bodies with a princess, joining a program to be basically a dome explorer or an escapee, saving the world from a prophecy, and all that good stuff. But I nearly did not speak that whole time. Saving the world from a prophecy is what I said, and all that good stuff. And along the way is your best friend. He's along for the ride again. After returning years later with a new status, you can forgive, seek revenge, kill him, or sacrifice yourself for him. Basically, the choices are yours, because it's a choose your own story. And that is Dear Blues. Now, I don't have much to say for any of the other factors, because everything will be revised and, stuff like that. And I'm only showing off these underdeveloped stories just to tell you guys what I, in general, have going on. So let's get into the characters. Starting off with Topman. As mentioned before, he's a genius inventor. He has the strongest build, capable of throwing boulders. But out of the three that we've talked about so far, being Dear Hip Hop, Dear Classic, and now Dear Blues, he's probably starting off the weakest. But he's still above any normal human. He's normally a stoic and, mature guy, but he can be silly at times. He has a rough relationship with his ex-best friend, because of the whole betrayal thing. But he is a kind guy who does want to help others. This does sound kind of bare bones, but we're still working on characters and stuff. Next, we're going to be going over the best friend character. So he's like a glue. It will be hard to get rid of him if you do want to get rid of him. After the time skip, he does show cowardly traits, but not when it comes to Topman. He does actually want to rekindle his previous friendship with Topman, but it's kind of too little too late. It's basically been years. He's used to upper class, style of living with fanciness. He's stubborn, he's weak without his enhancements, robotic enhancements, like drills on his hands and stuff. He's not as smart as Topman, but he does have brains. He's a natural born leader, and he can be silly at times, like Topman is. And finally, let's talk about the grandfather. There's not much known about him, especially in the story. That's not just me, not knowing about the character. It is kind of that, but I also do want him to be mysterious and aloof. He's kind of like the end goal. But yeah, he's trying to help guide Topman on his crest. He's already living his best life on the outside. He just wants Topman to be there with him. And as for other characters in the story, there are other characters, but they are kind of half-baked. They don't have a lot of character right now because, I'm still working on the story. I'm just showing you what I have. I did quickly want to mention the genre of my comic, which is a comedy shonen. I do want high stakes, but I also find myself being able to write comedies a lot more easier. And I tend to write better with a more chill vibe when the stakes aren't too high. If you want to see my comedy and other stuff, I have links in my description to my other stories. So if you want to see how have written stories in the past and stuff like that, not only is the first demo chapter out, I also have another comic called Irrationally Irrational, which is something I do want to make in the future, but just not now. It's something that I'm gonna make after the Dear franchise. So yeah, there's links to Irrationally Irrational, the first comic of Dear, and Coffee Man. So if you care, there are 3 other ways you can see my writing to judge my writing and see if I'm actually fucking with your vibe and stuff.